So good afternoon. Thank you to the Nashoba Valley, Middlesex West, and Greater Lowell Chamber of Commerce for this Zoom with the Westford Delegation. I'm Danielle McFadden, President of the Greater Lowell Chamber of Commerce. I'm thrilled that my colleagues, Melissa Federhoff, President of the Nashoba Valley Chamber, and Jonathan Kerr, Executive Director of the Middlesex West Chamber, are partnering with us on this important event. Melissa is going to be introducing our panel of esteemed municipal and state leaders, followed by a Q&A facilitated by John. Please type your name and your contact info in the chat. We ask that you mute yourself until the Q&A. If you have a question, you can send John a private message, or you feel free to raise your hand. And please note that this session is being recorded and will be shared on social media. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the invisible baton, the Zoom virtual baton, over to Melissa.
Excellent, thank you. So I am going to introduce our speakers today. We have with us Senator Ed Kennedy. Ed Kennedy Jr. is a lifelong resident of Lowell. Oh.
There we go. I'm trying to mute everybody.
Lifelong resident of Lowell, was elected to the Mass State Senate in November 2018. Senator Kennedy represents the 1st Middlesex District, which includes the city of Lowell and the towns of Dunstable, Groton, Pepperell, Kingsborough, and Westford. Senator Kennedy began his political career when he won a seat in the Lowell City Council in 1977, served 4 terms on the council, then served 4 years as a Middlesex County Commissioner, and returned to Lowell City Council in 2012. We also have with us Representative Jim Arciero. Jim is proud to serve the 2nd Middlesex District in the Mass House of Representatives. Currently in his 6th term, Jim represents the towns of Chelmsford, Littleton, and Westford. Currently the Vice Chairman of the Export Development Committee. He is also a member of the House Ways and Means Committee, which creates the annual state budget, and I'm sure that that is a fun thing happening right now, or this year. Jim also sits on the Veterans Affairs and Consumer Protection and Professional Licensure Committees. During his tenure in the Mass House of Representatives, he's also served on the committees for Revenue, Higher Education, and Labor and Workforce Development. And also with us is Westford Town Manager Jody Ross. Jody has been with the town of Westford as town manager since August. As the town manager, Jody is the Chief Administrative Officer of the town and acting as an agent for the Board of Selectmen and responsible for operation of town affairs. It sounds like a brief job description, but there's a lot to Jody's role. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our panel of speakers.
Is there an order we're going in? I was just curious.
My apologies. Jim, why don't you start?
Hi, thank you to both the Nashoba Valley Chamber and the Greater Lowell Chamber. We've had a great partnership over, my goodness, I can't believe 12 years now. And we talked a little bit before the show that I would say this has been one of the most difficult and unsettling times for people throughout the state. Looking at some of the statistics, 1 in 4 Massachusetts residents has lost their job due to COVID. It's been the worst economic recession since the Great Depression. And the crazy thing is, we said that 12 years ago, but here we are again. And there's been almost 1 million people in Massachusetts who, since March, have filed for unemployment. So 780,000 to 800,000 individuals that have filed for unemployment traditionally. And then there's been about 200,000 or so that have filed, who are gig employees or also, self-employed individuals. So it's been very unsettling. What I've done, what my office has done, is we've tried very hard to deal with our constituents in Chelmsford, Littleton, and Westford. It's been the busiest and I would say the most active that we have had with constituent services in my 12 years in the legislature. One has been unemployment. It's very scary when all of a sudden we have a stay-at-home order. There's individuals throughout the country getting sick. How do we deal with that? What we have done in our office is worked hand in hand with our local businesses and the Baker Polito administration to sort of navigate through this, to get people the resources they need, the services they need. And that's probably been, next to small businesses, some of the most important and the busiest piece of my job so far. Small business loans, just the uncertainty of where we're going as a small business. Am I going to be able to reopen? I was pretty upset the other day when I heard that Devin's Grill closed for good. Is that true, Melissa? I'm not sure if he has any plans to open, but this is something we're seeing everywhere. So what I've done is, in my office, is we've tried really hard to make sure people have the facts, just the facts. And through social media and through Zoom shows I do once a week, I meet with stakeholders and people on the front lines, my law enforcement officers, people that are first responders, people that are dealing with university and colleges. And so it kind of takes me to, before I talk a little bit, and I know myself and the senator will talk a little bit about some of the legislation that's been filed in this time, and really since March 15th. We've moved to remote voting, which is first in the Commonwealth's history. Try putting 160 people on phone lines and try voting. It was challenging. The first time we were working on moving the April 15th tax deadline to July 15th, and it was challenging to be on the phone to vote. We're so used to going and talking to other legislators, to debating, to doing all the things that we usually do. And so for the first, I would say, almost a month and a half to 2 months, the senator would attest to this as well, is a lot of things were moving through informal session. So things that needed to, either through emergency law or through executive order of the governor's office, but us as well, we had to do things informally, informal session. And remember, constitutionally, we have to meet every twice a week in session. It's typically informal, which non-controversial items, etc. And one individual can object to any bill and kill a bill. So it's certainly not the way that we wanted to conduct ourselves and move forward, but we were trying to really adapt with the times. And I think that's been the greatest challenge, has been the change in information. Remember the first month or so, and I know experiences I've had with the nursing homes, in particular the Nashoba Valley Nursing Home in Littleton, just a tragic situation where nursing homes, almost 70% or of a higher number of COVID deaths throughout the nation have been in nursing homes. And Littleton was no different. And getting that phone call at 7 o'clock in the morning from your first responders saying that there's over 5 deaths in a two days period when things were first breaking, and something on the lines of 22 visits within a week. It was troubling. And I would say that dealing with the nursing home, the constituents of the nursing home, filing legislation with Senator Eldridge to improve communication, improve testing, and improve oversight was one of the things that we needed to do. And I think the senator will talk a little bit about this too, it's been our weekly meetings with hospitals. I think one of the biggest issues that we saw during the pandemic was the communication that we had with hospitals, that they had to make sure that they weren't exacerbated from this, that they didn't have over amount of patients that were there, and they wouldn't have the resources to take care of people. And that's when things get really bad with the pandemic. So, working with the administration to ensure that there was field hospitals throughout the region, and also making sure that we were able to continue to have the resources directed towards the hospitals, so they weren't exacerbated and unable to perform, the actual duties there. So they've been looking to bring as many people back to the hospital now, after telling them to go to your primary care for such a period of time. But it was I mean, the first month of this was the wild, wild west when it came to PPEs and getting PPEs. Dealing with vendors internationally across the country to make sure that we could get those resources to our first responders, to our hospitals. Senator Kennedy was instrumental in helping Lowell General Hospital with ventilators from Zoll, the Zoll medical device company out of Chelmsford. And it was that kind of ingenuity that we needed to work together and to really figure out ways to help our hospitals, to help our constituents in a lot different kind of manner than we've done in the past. So if anyone wants, I don't want to hog up too much time. I don't really jump in here.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you. Senator Kennedy.
Thank you. I almost feel like I don't have to say anything. I'm following Representative Arciero, who did an excellent job, I think, of summarizing how it's been for the past several months. But I do, I would say this. I think that I would totally concur with him that this has been one of the most, one of the busiest times for constituent services. You know, one issue after another, but it's been that way for the past 3 months. And for my staff, and I'm sure for his staff, where you're working remotely, everything goes a little bit slower and is a little bit more involved. And to address those constituent requests, and it just takes a little bit longer than it usually does. I think that in addition to the constituent calls that have come into the office, you know, on the Senate side, we've been divided up into little working groups. So I meet with a economic recovery working group twice a week. It used to be 3 times a week. Now we're meeting twice a week. I'm also with another working group that deals with food scarcity, which is a little spooky that you belong to a working group that's dealing with food scarcity. But and then a third group that has to do with seafood. And that's in addition to the meetings that Representative Arciero and I have participated in with the hospital. And the hospital's been great. And as it turned out, I think they did, you know, they should be commended. They did an excellent job and never reached that level where it just got to be a little bit too much for them. But I do think this, I mean, I know we're several months into this so far, but we still have a long way to go. And I think it's important as we start to loosen up the restrictions. I mean, outside dining is available. Some retail with restrictions is now available. And as we start to loosen up, I think it's important that we realize that it doesn't mean that the virus is gone, and that it's really, really important for everybody to use masks, to use the hand sanitizer, and to keep social distancing. And it's those 3 things, and for everybody to pay attention to those 3 things and be diligent about them, that will keep us from spiraling into a second surge of the virus. But aside from that, I just want to thank the Chamber and Danielle and yourself for putting this on. I think this is good. I think this is the 3rd one that I participated in, the first one for Westford, but I do think that these things are good, and that, you know, communication in general is good. And I think a lot of people just want to know what's going on. So thank you.
Absolutely. And we on behalf of the Nashoba Valley Chamber, we do love partnering with Lowell and Middlesex West Chambers. We're very lucky that we all 3 share Westford.
Yes.
Speaking of Westford, Jody, what's happening with you?
So yes, thank you for inviting me today. And I think your mic might have cut out, Melissa, when you were giving my little biography, but I did start in 2008, which is what Jim was referring to. So that was a recession period and very challenging. Nothing like what we're facing now, though. And before we closed, we've been working on some plans for how we would remote work if that happened. And then on Friday, the 13th in March, and we closed, we had some ideas. So about 50% of our staff worked remotely, and about 50% reported in the town offices. But all of our other departments, police, fire, highway, water, kept working as normal. And we basically have been providing all town services other than the recreation department, the senior center, which has offered a lot of virtual programs, and the library, which offered virtual programs. All the other departments kept operating, and we would be creative. We would come outside and meet with people where we needed to. We have some shade set up behind the town hall with some plexiglass on tables so we can make appointments or meet with residents. We have not opened the doors yet to the public. We're putting up plexiglass inside and taking some other measures. But I've been incredibly proud of the staff at the town and the schools for what they've done and all the creativity that they've done to make us continue the services as we want to deliver. And I have to say the residents have been happy. We've helped local businesses as much as we can, continued inspections and continued everything we could to keep them operational. Of course, now we have restaurants that are open outdoors, and we approved 9 liquor license alter premises last week. We're putting a list up on our economic development page today of the restaurants that are open for takeout and eating sitting outside. So we're hoping to help them continue to. All of our board meetings went virtual, and I have to thank our IT department, but we've had over 300 virtual meetings in town since this happened. And I think in some ways it has increased participation. And we actually had a League of Women Voters town meeting warrant review the other night. And I've been to those where there's maybe 10 people participating, but we had over 75 people participating and asking questions. It was like a pre-town meeting. But I actually think some of the virtual meetings are pulling more people in. They don't have to get dressed, go down to the town hall, find a parking place, and go upstairs. They can just phone or come in through the computer. So that's been kind of a positive that we've had. Right now, we're working on the reopening, as I said. I'm not exactly sure when we're going to open. We need to be completely safe. But again, we are providing every service that people need other than the library going indoors and the senior center. Recreation, Westford has a very robust recreation department, and we provide after-school services for our town. And that has taken quite a hit because, of course, with the schools closed, that had to close. So that actually has given us a kind of a hole of about over $500,000 in revenue this year. And so we are going to open some summer camps following the state legislature's guidance. And that will be happening over the next couple of weeks. We just opened our playgrounds and our fields. The beaches, of course, are open, and so we're trying to move forward with all of that. The state has been wonderful. The laws fast and furious, and Jim has done a great job of trying to help me keep up on exactly what was passed and what I'm supposed to do. So definitely has the brain cells being recharged, trying to keep up with everything. We have town meeting coming up this Saturday. We talked about that quite a lot. We're holding it at Westford Academy at 9 a.m. It's going to be 91 degrees, so we hope it's a fairly quick town meeting. And we will have a little bit of shade, but not a lot of shade. So we streamlined the warrant. We're excited to hold it. We have all sorts of safety procedures in place. And then, of course, our election will be June 30th, and we've had 1,400 people had voted as of last week, mostly absentee and early voting, and that's what we're encouraging, mail-in voting, but our polls will be open. So all in all, I mean, it's been the most challenging part of my career. I've been in the public sector maybe 26 years now. They did not have pandemic training when I got my master's degree. I'm thinking I might teach a class in that now that once this is all over, but really it's been rewarding to work with people and figure out how to do this right. We've kept people safe. I only have one town employee that has tested positive, and it's pretty clear that person got it from his wife, who is a nurse and was diagnosed with COVID. So we've done a great job of keeping our people safe, and I'm very proud of that. Right now, Westford has 6 active cases, and for a town with 25,000 people, I think that's pretty good. So I'm feeling very good about our Board of Health and the measures we've taken to keep our employees, our residents, our officials, our business owners all safe. So that's my little nutshell, unless you have some questions for me.
Thank you so much. The whole esteemed panel has been doing so much and keeping everybody really well informed with this very fast moving thing that we don't know when the end is going to be. So it's been very challenging for everybody. John from the Middlesex West Chamber now is going to facilitate a Q&A.
All righty. And everybody can hear me? So,
yeah.
All right. So if you are not asking a question at the time, we ask you just stay muted. Essentially what I'll do is, I think if you have a question, let me know in the chat section. If you don't know how to do that, if you go scroll down to the bottom of your little screen, there's a little pop-up thing that'll come up and it says chat, and then you can type in there, I have a question. Essentially, when I see that, I will call on you. You unmute yourself, and that's also down to the bottom left of your screen, and you can ask your question. And actually, we'll go, looks like we already have one coming in. So Bruce Rosenberg, if you want to go ahead and ask your question, go ahead. I'm looking for you on my thing here. And make sure you are unmuted, of course.
I'll also try to do the unmuting thing for people that you call on.
Okay. Bruce?
It actually looks like Bruce may have dropped off.
Muted. I can see him.
Oh yeah, there he is. Okay, you're unmuted now, Bruce.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. This was excellent. I have a question for Senator Kennedy, and could he elaborate somewhat on that Senate Economic Recovery Group that he participates in, and if there's any tips he can provide to local town economic development committees, business associations, and so on.
You're
Committee
muted.
is comprised of about, am I all set? Yeah. I'm not sure that I have any tips, but the committee that we meet with has 13 senators, and basically each of the 13 senators will have something to say. So I am the chairman for arts and tourism and culture. So I usually will speak on venues that have been closed, or venues that are struggling to open, or open on a limited basis, and also restaurants and other businesses that are related to, or that benefit from those events. Western Mass, for instance, is Mocha has closed. Tanglewood is closed for the season. Jacob's Pillow is closed for the season, and those are three big venues that draw a lot of people over the summer out to Western Mass, and they're closed. So that means that the restaurants and the B&Bs and so forth that also benefit from people that go out there, they're going to lose out. Maybe in the Commonwealth, the biggest one is in Plymouth, where Plymouth was planning Plymouth 400, and it's something that they've spent a couple of years planning, and have also invested quite a bit of money just into the planning. And when I say quite a bit of money, I mean north of $1 million when it's all told. And now that's just gone. They're not going to be able to do that. And in Lowell, we've seen Boarding House Park, the summer concert series. That's we're not going to be doing that anymore. And it just goes the folk festival, which is a big event, which is a big draw. That's been canceled for the year. And in just about every community throughout the Commonwealth, there's been events that have had to be either postponed or completely canceled for this year. I do think this. I think that for people that are trying to make it this year, and that are losing. If you can just spend any advertising dollars in Massachusetts on trying to attract Massachusetts residents rather than residents from outside of the state, I think that you're probably better off. I also think that one of the important things for economic development is going to be having the schools go back, because the schools, whether we like it or not, also provide daycare for many, many families in which both parents work. And that's going to be a real challenge for people. It's going to be a challenge for if you have, for instance, if you're going to have social distancing at the schools, then that's fine, but you can't put 40 kids on a school bus where there's no social distancing on the school bus and then have them go to school in social distance. That makes no sense at all. And the alternative to that, if you're going to have social distancing on the school buses, would be that you'd need 3 or 4 times as many school buses as you have currently. And first of all, I don't think we have the inventory that every community could do that. But second of all, we also don't have, and most communities don't have the money to be able to do that. One of the things that I was able to host a couple of weeks ago, and actually Superintendent Olson was an active participant, is we had a Zoom meeting for with Salaka Fawi, who is the superintendent of the only virtual school district in the Commonwealth. They have about 750 kids, and they offer totally just virtual courses. And I thought it would be a good idea for superintendents to see how that works and whether or not that can be part of their solution for September. So that's kind of part of what that committee is going to do. But I don't have any secret answers or special little tips that I can give you other than what I've just said.
Thank you.
And Bruce, I can sort of add to that a little bit. Again, like the senator, I don't have necessarily a tips, but I will say that so much of obviously our economy and our state budget is predicated on people up and working and industries that are moving forward, et cetera. Our budget, our state budget, constitutionally, we have to have a balanced budget every fiscal year. We are now June 15th. Typically, we had already passed, if this wasn't COVID-related times where we've had stay-at-home orders, we already passed a House budget, a Senate budget, and we were dealing with, the governor's vetoes or changes, et cetera, and we would be coming pretty close, Senator, to getting this budget done. Right now, and it's a scary thing, remember, legislatively, one of the first votes we did was we moved the tax filing deadline from April until July 15th. And our budgets, certainly when revenues come in month to month, we build our budget. 2/3 of our budget is obligatory spending, whether that's, the MBTA, education, bond notes, et cetera. So what we're seeing now is a possible and what I'm hearing, most likely $6 billion deficit in our state budget. That's the hole we're looking at right now. We don't have a budget right now. And I think we're all just trying to figure it out. And it's a scary thing to say, but I'm hopeful that when the tax deadline is moved to July 15th, and those revenues, which will be larger and business revenues, that we'll have a better sort of snapshot on how we're going to finish the budget and get the budget for the new fiscal year. On top of that, Jody, Jody Ross and I have had plenty of conversations. She has to build her budget by the end of June as well. And it's difficult for cities and towns right now to plan because it's difficult for us to know what the numbers are going to be. We've seen deficits in the past with, a subprime mortgage and the the Great Recession of 2008, 9, and 10, and how we got out of that. This is much different. It's different because it's not one particular industry. It's a complete stoppage. So I think the big elephant in the room is, what is the federal government going to do? They're going to have to help at some point, and I think that's the elephant in the room right now, Bruce.
Thank you.
If I can jump in on that too a little bit, when I've had conversations with Ways and Means, what they're waiting for is to see whether or not Washington does anything. So you may recall that maybe it was 3 weeks ago that the House passed a recovery bill that the Senate has not touched yet. And that bill was probably a little overly generous for Massachusetts. In other words, I think it would be $9 billion coming into Massachusetts if the House version were to pass. But certainly not just Massachusetts, but every state in the union could use, including Kentucky, could use some money. And everybody's kind of in the same boat. So I think that as long as we can, what the Commonwealth would like to do is wait and see what the federal government's going to do, and then as soon as we know that, we would try to get a message out to the cities and towns as to what they can expect in terms of local aid and Chapter 70. You know, this is the first year of the Student Opportunity Act. This was supposed to be the first influx of cash for school districts. And, you know, we're in a situation now where we just, at this point, don't know how much money we're going to have for anybody. But I will say this, I do think that Chapter 70 will be a priority in the budget once it ever gets done.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay, next question is from Silas. Silas, you still with us? You have to unmute.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I have one question for Jody, and then I have a question for state reps as well. So, so my question to Jody. So, Jody, I'm a small business owner in Westford, and a person of color. So, I would like to know what initiatives or programs or incentives, whatever you're planning in terms of, helping businesses that are owned by, people of color, because our town, as you very well know, 75% is white, and initiatives like these can probably bridge the gap. So I want to know what your thoughts are.
Well, hi, I have not met you, so nice to meet you. And so the town is in the process of issuing a statement. The selectmen are going to be issuing that at their next meeting on June 23rd. And there is a community forum scheduled for July 7th that a selectman and several other people are putting together, and I will be on that too. So I would say we have not discussed what initiatives or what assistance we can do right now, primarily for that group. But we are assisting everyone right now in getting their restaurants open. We have helped by providing the barriers that they needed. We've dropped them off, put them in position for the restaurants, many of whom did not have that kind of barrier on hand, of course. We immediately took the 9 restaurants that wanted to alter their premises. We took that to the Board of Selectmen immediately. We also did not require businesses without liquor licenses to come to the Board of Selectmen. So as soon as the governor gave us direction that those businesses could open, we tried to provide assistance to them immediately. So I would say, I don't know, I did not know that percentage. And yeah, every business owner is equal in my opinion, but if a certain group needs more assistance than others, I certainly think we need to have that conversation and see how we can assist.
Okay. Yeah, I look forward to attending those meetings as well. I'm aware of the July 7th meeting, Jody, so I will be there for the July 7th meeting. My question to the state representatives, right? Again, as a small business owner, no one plans for, 12 weeks of closure, right? So, so my business is scheduled to open, I think is phase 3, probably July 1st week or so, right? Mm-hmm. And I took this issue and I have written to your emails as well. But, my question is that, one of the things that we are still paying is the business insurance premiums, right? Our business is closed, but we are still paying business insurance premiums. Now, we have gone to the insurance companies and they have, they cannot do anything in terms of, returning the premiums, for example, right? And then you have examples like California where, the insurance commissioner has issued an order to return the premiums for 3 months, I think, in California, right? And it's an order. So the same insurance companies who are operating in California have to return the premiums because it's a state law, right? So my question is, I think, I've written to the commissioner's office as well, right? And I got a very standard response saying that we are working with insurance companies, which is kind of not going to help us. But what really is going to help is that, some kind of a state law that says probably 3 months or 4 months of premiums to be returned to the businesses, because absolutely there is no risk for the insurance companies, right? And unless there is a law, the insurance companies will not operate or will not comply. So again, thoughts on what you can do about this issue?
Well, Silas, I would say first, good to see you again. I think right around the time you opened your business, you were already giving to the community through the Toys for Tots program, and I again thank you for your generosity and your willingness to be a partner in the community. I really appreciate that. I think the senator and I would be happy to socially distantly sit down with you at one point if you have ideas for legislation. I know there's been, let me just say this, Silas, there's been over 100 pieces of legislation on a whole host of issues filed just during the COVID pandemic. And there's been a lot of flaws in, for instance, in some of the small business loan programs. I've heard from a number of employers that have said to me that additional 600 has actually created a situation where our employee would rather not come back to work yet. I've heard a lot of individuals talking about that. I think, to my understanding, there's going to be a lot of issues. Our legislative session typically ends August 1. It's almost like, and I think the senator would agree to this, it's almost like we've started a brand new session once we went into stay-at-home orders in a pandemic. So there are pieces of legislation that has been filed just recently to look at things that have worked and haven't worked during this pandemic. Look, telemedicine, that's a winner during the pandemic. A lot of people wanted to know, certainly being at home, what has improved for people? Zoom. I think we all know now that no matter what we do, we're going to have to do a Zoom call, right? There's no more avoiding meetings. If you were going to Disney World with your family, Silas, someone's going to say, hey, you're in the airport for an extra hour. You can do a Zoom meeting. So there's a lot of positives during the pandemic that we've done. We've become resilient, figured out ways to do things more efficiently and effectively with a short period of time, in some ways crisis moments. But I think some of the things you raised today, I certainly think we're going to have to, after this legislative session, step back and see winners and losers, things that work, things that aren't working, and how we can improve on things. And I think the senator and I will be happy to work on that with you.
Yeah, I would concur with that, Silas. I think that the issue that you brought up regarding the insurance premiums is one that there's been, we've had some discussion about that in that working group that I referred to earlier, but no resolution. But I'd be happy to bring it up again and see if we can't push a little harder on that. If you've got other ideas, or if you would like to talk about it further, you can call my office at 617-722-1630. A live person will answer the phone, and if you do that, we'll take all of the information that you have and work with Representative Arciero's office to try to get something done for you.
And Silas, one other thing to say about that too is I do know that there has been pieces of legislation filed that are touching on the subject matter that you're talking about. But again, like the senator said, that they haven't necessarily had a ton of momentum, just because I really feel that a lot of the reform and looking back to see winners and losers and things that need to be fixed may not happen right away. So that's why I think that it's important for us to talk to you to get everything together, and we'll go forward.
Okay, thank you. I will reach out.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, our next question comes from Tom Barry.
Thank you, John.
Hey, Tom.
I have a couple of questions, a couple of points to make. I'm on the Economic Development Committee, have been since, I don't know, 2012, I think we started that committee. I want to first start off by acknowledging all of the help from Jody and Jeff Morissette, the Director of Land Use Management, with some of these small businesses. It's been a very trying time, as Silas has mentioned. And we've also worked with a couple of the major developers in Westford who are very concerned with some of the small businesses ultimately having to close their doors. So that's no new news, obviously. I guess being on the Economic Development Committee, I worry about these businesses. I worry a couple of things, have all of the businesses that wanted benefits under the PPP program been able to get those benefits? Will most of those payments be forgiven? I mean, do all the businesses know how to go about getting those benefits forgiven? And anything that you might know about a follow-up PPP program that we can spread around to the businesses. I think some of the small businesses were just a little bit late in understanding what they could have applied for. So just any sense that you might have on those.
I would say, Tom, first, call our offices on a regular basis. I think some of my remarks I made in the beginning, a lot of it are, and I don't mean this in any kind of a negative way, but holding small businesses' hands and constituents' hands through the process. The Baker and Polito administration, some of my colleagues haven't given them high marks. I have. I think they've been fantastic during this process. With information changing so quickly and being able to sort of navigate and get things done effectively. The small business portal for small businesses that is on their COVID-19 website, start there for loans, for unemployment issues, for business issues. And we on a regular basis have conversations with the governor's staff, and they have, for instance, taken businesses. I have a dentist a gentleman in Westford. He's a Westford resident. He has a dentist office in Littleton and in Westford. And the PPE issue was a big issue to get, the right, medical and safety devices, et cetera, in their offices, which have now been kind of dried up and hard to get. And the governor's office has been working with vendors throughout the state to get businesses, the resources they need when it comes to PPE and, keeping people safe. But on top of that, I really feel that use your rep and your senator in this situation. If I'm a small business or I'm a constituent, it just looks like a lot of red tape and just something that some people may slag off because it looks really difficult and it looks like something that is going to cause you to have a migraine. But I think you use your resources to help. And the senator and myself do it every day, and we help businesses get the answers. We not necessarily can always get them what they want, but we can get you the right answers.
Great, thank you.
Let me just add to that, if I could. I think the PPP program is working better than it was at the outset. And I think, we've all heard the stories about, restaurant chains that were getting money when they maybe didn't need it or deserve it. But I think it is working a lot better than it was. I think that there were some people who were calling for it to be extended into January of next year. I'm not sure that will happen, but that's an idea. And I think that when you apply for that money, they explain to you just what you need to do in terms of when you bring back your employees, so that when you reopen, you don't have to, if you've laid off your employees, they can stay laid off and you don't have to. But if you want to convert the loan into a grant, you've got to bring back those employees once you reopen, which also means notifying the Commonwealth that those people are should no longer be eligible for unemployment. So, but as far as I know, the people that have contacted my office, they've all been able to get some money through that program, and so I think it's working a lot better than it was initially. Great,
thank you,
Tom. Let me just also say, sorry I misspoke. I had a lot of businesses looking for PPEs, and I thought you said that first, so I apologize. Right. It's the same answer, and that is the fact. Use your resources, and we will get you the correct people to help you.
Great, thanks, Jim.
No problem.
Can I also jump in and say that our banks aren't ones that we're talking about in terms of how they're frontline workers and how hard they've been working. But when PPP came to the forefront, these bankers were working 70, 80 hours a week, just rapidly processing applications. They were pulling employees from all different departments to make sure that businesses were getting their PPP. So we actually started something saying, love a lender, and say thank you to the banks especially the community banks, for the big role that they've been playing throughout all this. So we want to
the Associated Industries of Massachusetts, Danielle, had kind of said that the first call you should make as a small business is not the state, it's your bank.
Mm-hmm.
And so small businesses should really reach out to the bank, because they're going to be dealing with the federal and state loans. So
great, thanks.
All right, we don't have anybody online. Does anybody else have a question? You can just send it in the chat. All right, who is this? Joanne, you have a question. Still with us? Joanne Dennison?
Yes, I am.
Okay, there we go.
So my question is to our state legislatures concerning assisted living. And I know you all are looking very carefully at a lot of things to do with both nursing homes and assisted living. But one of the things, unless it's changed pretty recently, is assisted living facilities do not fall under medical facilities in this state. They fall under housing, which is, I ran into a huge problem a couple of years ago, which is why I'm familiar with this. And in other states where I had dealt with assisted living with my parents, they fell under medical. And I'm just thinking, after what we have gone through, are going through, that this would be a really prime time to reconsider that falling under a medical facility. Any thoughts on that?
I do, Joanne. First, one of the major issues that my office and Senator Eldridge's office worked on during the beginning of the pandemic was, we've all seen the news reports about, almost high 70% of the deaths across the country, not just Massachusetts, have been at long-term care facilities, Holyoke Soldiers Home, Nashoba Valley, the Littleton House at Nashoba Valley, I always get it wrong, and a number of other nursing homes throughout the Commonwealth. What we found was initially is there's blame to go all around. I think first and foremost, there weren't adequate PPEs being used at the nursing facilities. But look at information too. The first month of the pandemic, we weren't sure that asymptomatic people could spread COVID-19. Now we are sure of that. So there was a reluctance in some places to not have everyone tested. And what we found was that when we looked to file legislation, we needed to have the information of who's positive in those long-term care facilities or nursing homes each and every day to be able to measure how to handle it. And the way that we've done a great job at limiting the curve and flattening the curve. Really has been a combination of testing, contract tracing, excuse me. That's where the governor hired almost 600 to 700 people to literally call people that might have been in contact with someone with COVID-19 and find out, almost like a detective, and find out exactly who they've talked to, who they've touched, and then concentrate on quarantining those people. And that's been a real success story for here in New York and New Jersey, some of the hardest hit places. So we filed legislation, Joanne, to do additional oversight with Department of Public Health for long-term care facilities.
Let me interrupt for one moment. Does that also
as well as nursing homes
living though?
And it does. It's all connected. It's all the same umbrella. And right now we passed legislation to allow to mandate that nursing homes and assisted living and the entire long-term care facilities will report data each and every day of people who are testing positive and negative.
But there is no move right now to move assisted living in general under the health department versus.
There's going to be there again. There's legislation that I have. There's other legislators that have filed bills, but I anticipate an overhaul of the way we do business in nursing homes, long-term care facilities, the entire umbrella of those types of institutions, and you're going to see those changes, I believe, next session or as soon as we can.
Great, thank you very much.
No problem.
If I could add to that, I think that, one of the things as we go is over the past several months, what we've come to realize that there are little cracks in the system, and assisted living might be in one of those cracks. And so there might be reasons why it's not a good idea long-term to treat assisted living as part of the healthcare system, but for issues like like this virus, it's probably good to do that for that time so that they don't fall, or the people that live there don't fall through the cracks. And that's something that I probably will bring up this week at that working group and see what I get for an answer. So again, if you call my office, I'll be glad to get back to you with a response once I get a response.
I would appreciate that. And while you're having the conversation, again, this isn't a COVID thing, but it shows the example is abuse cannot be reported about staff in assisted living in the ways you can in nursing homes. Okay. So that's another hole that needs to be filled.
Yes.
But thank you both. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the question. It's a good one.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're just about out of time here. Unless somebody has a really quick question, like, do you prefer hamburgers or hot dogs or something? Or neither, for that matter.
Both.
Neither.
Are there any more last-minute questions? I don't have anything in queue, so.
So I think we'll hand it over to Melissa for a minute.
Okay.
Great. So if our guest speakers have any last-minute words, Senator Kennedy, do you have anything that you'd like to wrap up with?
Just that I think these forums are good to have. Zoom is not my favorite way to do things, but under the circumstances, I think that there's a lot of value to doing this. And so I want to thank you for hosting this, and I'd be happy to do it again at another time, sometime in the near future when you think it's appropriate. But thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you for doing this.
Great, thank you. Representative Arciero.
Thank you to both the chambers. It's been a great partnership. I feel like we've done it together for almost 12 years now. Certainly gotten through some tough economic times and some prosperous economic times. We'll get through this too. It is challenging. I think it's unsettling. I think for I can't imagine what it's like to be a small business owner right now. It's a very difficult time. Use my office certainly as a resource. We do it each and every day. It's important, I think, in these times to work with people to get things done, and essentially our offices are there as a resource, along with the governor's office, to get the necessary needs for your businesses and for people to get the resources they need as well. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. And Town Manager Jody Ross.
Well, as usual, I'm last, and I'm fine with that, as Danielle knows, with the W from Westford. But I do want to thank both the chambers, and I want to tell Danielle I really missed the March Town Managers Forum, Municipal Forum that you hold, and I think everything was falling apart when that happened. But I look forward to next year. And thank you, everyone. I think the Economic Development Committee in Westford, thank you for being here. I think we heard some things that maybe we can put on our next agendas to discuss. And I look forward to assisting Westford businesses as we move forward. So thank you, everybody. I enjoyed participating. And if anyone has questions, please email me or give me a call. Happy to help you out.
Thank you to our esteemed panel. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us. We have recorded this, so we'll send it out to everybody that registered, as well as post on social media. I also wanted to give a shout out to the Kingsborough Town Administrator, Matt Hansen's on this call. So hi, Matt. And we also have Peter Milano.
Hey,
Hi, how are you? I haven't heard the baby news yet.
Good, thank you. Oh, Matthew Jr. is 2 months old now. He's doing well.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Busy
I missed one of the
household,
calls,
how
I'm
many?
gonna have to rewatch today.
Yeah.
And
You're
then
lucky.
we have
This is one Zoom call he's not crying on, but I was muted anyway.
I feel your pain. Mine are almost out of that, but I feel your pain for sure. And your joy as well. We also have Peter Milano here from the Mass Office of Business Development, a great partner to us all and always willing to help out. So hey, Peter, how are you?
Hello. Good job by both you and Melissa putting this great call together, and certainly to the legislators who always do a terrific job. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
When I send the email recap, I'll include Peter's information because I think it's really valuable. We also have Rena here from the Mass Hire Lowell Career Center. The Mass Hire Career Centers and workforce boards throughout the state have been doing a phenomenal job. So I'll include the resources for both the Greater Lowell area and the Nashoba Valley area. And then I just wanted to thank Melissa from the Nashoba Valley Chamber and John from the Middlesex West Chamber for partnering with us on this event. Everybody for taking the time, really appreciate it. So on that note, I read something that said, people don't usually leave meetings like this, but when you're on Zoom, you do.
Okay.
like when you actually leave a meeting, like, bye. So once we're all meeting in person, I'm actually going to do that.
Yeah.
But thank you, everybody, for taking the time today. We really
Thanks,
appreciate it. So on that note, bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.